Ladies and gentlemen, it's Joe Traina, and welcome to our 17th installment of Please Join Me. I am here today with an immense talent, a man who's been on the jazz scene for decades. He is respected worldwide, and he's respected by me as well. And I want to introduce Ralph Lalama in a moment. And he is, as Zan Stewart, the critic, put it, a grand, modern-minded storyteller, a first-class jazz soloist. Ralph has led his own groups as well as been a veteran of many jazz ensembles and orchestra, notably with Woody Herman, Buddy Rich, the Mel Lewis Orchestra, and he's been with the Vanguard Orchestra for many years. He's also worked with various vocalists, including Mel Torme. He's a 3-time Grammy winner through his work with the Joe Lovano Nonet and the Vanguard Orchestra. And he has 9 CDs out as a leader, which I'm sure he's going to tell us about today. So without further delay, how are you, Ralph?
Good, Joe. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm glad to have you, and thanks for making time for us today.
No problem. My pleasure.
So you want to tell us a little bit about your early life? Where in PA are you from?
A place called West Eloquippa, Pennsylvania, and it's a suburb of Pittsburgh.
Oh, okay.
You know, the steel industry at that time, you know.
Right.
So I grew up on the railroad tracks in West Eloquippa. I got a clarinet. My grandfather was a clarinet alto player. Excuse me. I was a musical family. My father was a drummer. My mother was a singer. And my brother is a piano player, arranger. He's the head of the jazz department at Hofstra University right now. And then I grew up, you know, with music all around me, you know, and plus sports, because in Pennsylvania, you know, ended up being a football fan, a baseball fan, and a jazz fan. You know, and I grew up listening to, you know, when I was 14, we had a band called the Reverbs, and we played music of James Brown and stuff like that. So I was listening to the James Brown, you know, that was the music of the time for me. And then still in the house, we would listen to Sonny Stitt and, you know, big bands and singers. My mother was a singer too. I forgot to mention that. And that's how my mother and father met, actually, on bandstand, you know, kind of like how me and Nicole met on the bandstand. But anyway, so I started with a clarinet. Then by the time I was 14, I got a tenor under the Christmas tree. And then I started playing that, you know. Then I went, you know, I got through high school. Excuse me, I went to college, Youngstown State University. That's where people think I'm from Ohio. And then I then actually didn't even have a jazz band my first year. I was a clarinet major. And then my second year, they started up a jazz band where this man, Tony Leonardi, who's from upstate New York, Syracuse, and he was a bass player with Woody Herman. Now he was going, in his later years, he started going to college in Youngstown. So he started a band, and I finally, make a long story short, I finally got into the band. I auditioned my second year as a sophomore, and I got in, and then the rest was history. He really taught me a lot. And I was always listening to jazz and trying to play it, but he really set me straight, you know, on a lot of things. I was listening to deeper people, I thought, you know, like Sonny Rollins and Coltrane and stuff like that. Charlie Parker, of course. And Then I met Thad Jones, my last concert at YSU. Tony invited Thad Jones to come in, and then I talked to Thad because I didn't want to really be a high school band director. You know what I mean? You know, that was my education. You know, a clarinet major with a education degree, music education degree. And then so I started talking to Thad. And he said, "Man, if you really want to play, you should come to New York." So I moved to New York because I didn't really want to be, like I said, a band director, you know, at that time, you know. So I moved to New York, and then my first gig was with Thad and Mel, but it was a small group thing. It was because they used to teach at William Patterson College. They were both instructors there, and they had a gig there for 3 nights. And when I got to New York, I called them. So I was there 10 days. And he invited me to play. He said, "Come on and play the gig," you know. so because I met him in college. It wasn't like I just called him randomly. I met him in college. He gave me his number, blah, blah, blah. And he was so nice that I played, it was like I learned more in that gig than I did in college. Believe me. And I'm not putting down college. I'm just saying, playing with that type of, Thad Jones, Mel Lewis, and George Mraz on bass, and a piano player named Walter Norris at the time. And then that was it. Then I subbed with the band a little bit, Then I went on the road with Woody Herman, make a long story short. Then I got off of that, and I came back, and I was just working regular gigs, and then I still subbing a little bit with Thad and Mel at the time. Then I went out with Buddy Rich for a while. I came back, and then it was just the Mel Lewis Orchestra at the time. And then, I was subbing like crazy. I was playing both chairs, like subbing. And then finally, this guy, Gary Prebeck, quit. And then Mel hired me, permanently. And then the rest is history. I'm still there. When we're there, when I haven't been there for a year, but, because the Vanguard shut down for live gigs, especially with a big band. It's hard to separate at the Village Vanguard. It's such a small place, especially for a big band. But anyway, that's basically it in a nutshell.
Well, I want to go back because I have a little association to these groups that you spoke with.
I was there with Lubano and Frank Tiberi.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, those guys,
Yeah, they're a little before him. And also, I guess with Buddy, my friend Chuck Bergeron, the bassist, likes to say I was his last bassist. Once he played with me, he couldn't take it anymore, and unfortunately passed away.
Yeah, right. I was before that too.
Yeah. So tell me about your time with those groups. Obviously, it was a great way to learn your craft, right? I know Woody's and Buddy's arrangements were top drawer, and Woody was very progressive in many ways. He kept surrounding himself with younger and younger musicians, which kept that group more contemporary and kept moving it forward past his genesis as a big band, straight ahead group in the 40s.
Of course, oh, definitely. It was always always getting more modern, sure. Contributions, well, solistically wise, people were playing the way they play, they weren't playing like in the 40s, and then also the arrangements too. Yeah, a lot of the arrangements moved forward, You know what I mean? So, but to me, it was a great experience because, it was my first major gig, I guess. I played with Thad on small, but I'm talking about where you're on the road, you're living it, you're living it, so like that's, and then every night you're performing, at a high level, trying to be at a high level, and you're learning, and then as far as just general as a saxophone player, to play in the saxophone section, a lot of people say, I don't like big bands. I understand what they're talking about because the freedom is not there, but the discipline is. You have to play in tune, you have to play with people, you have to play together. You can't just stick out, like you go nuts. You have to play, and then, like I said, you have to phrase with people, have to breathe with people. It's like a team, and I learned that, even though I played in big bands before, but still on that every night, the same thing, trying to hit, and improve your craft, and have the, have the fortune of doing it every night, And then I moved on to Buddy, and that was another thing. To me, it was funny because one day Mel, I'll tell you a little story. With Buddy had a bad back when I was on. Sometimes he couldn't even get dressed. He couldn't even put his arm through his sleeve, because he would be, So he invited Mel to come on the bus just in case he couldn't make the gig, couldn't play. He was in too much pain. And so I got to know Mel. I knew him because I played with him a little bit, but I really got to know. He was on the bus. We would talk. He said, you know what? And I thought this too. It was amazing. I always thought that like Woody Herman was like high school. Not literally high school, but as far as this gamut of big bands. And Buddy was like college, and Thad and Mel was like real life. You know what I mean? And Mel sat down. We were talking one time, and he said the same thing to me, and I flipped out. I said, wow, that's exactly what I think. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? So it was like, and I'm not putting down Woody Herman at all. I'm not, or Buddy Rich. No. It's just the level of things. You know what I mean? Just the way, like Buddy's arrangements for saxophone anyway, they're much more, technical. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Not to, but still to play, just like hold notes out and stuff in Woody's band is still a challenge too, because you got to blend, you got to be in tune, hopefully, So, and then Mel, I mean, the Thad and Mel's band was totally ridiculous, and still is. The charts are, harder, and they're, and the longer solo space. Big band will turn into a small group, and you get to play. It's not just like a couple choruses. You get to play as long as you want, usually. So it's a whole different life. It's a whole different the musical life. Anyway, did I answer your question, Joe? I can't remember.
You answered it and fully well.
Oh, okay.
Now I want to ask you, how did you like? And I know as a young person, it's exciting in its way and it's an adventure. But how did you like being on the road?
Well, I was on the road before, but not like that. I mean,
Right.
On a bus or a plane with 16 guys. You know what I mean? I mean, it was you learn a lot. I know when I first got off of Woody's van after being there for a while, I realized I had to make my own bed. You know what I mean? Yeah, I have then I had to, like cook and stuff, So you get used to just eating out and not, just get out in a hotel room, splitting and going to the next place, And then, then you have to get along with people too, Maybe, because just 16 different personalities there. Some people you like, some people are still my friends, some people I never heard of, I never saw again, But you still, when you're there, you have to deal with personalities. So that's like a learning experience, just in life,
Absolutely.
And then also, you have deadlines. You have to be at the bus at 6 a.m. because you have to go fly, You know what I mean? So but luckily you're young, so you could hang out still, you wake up and go still do it. You don't feel it as much. Because when I got older, because I still do it now. Sometimes I have to catch a 7 o'clock flight, so I gotta wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning because I gotta go to Newark. You know what I mean? To make the flight. So, but now, with this old gray hair and stuff, I feel it more than I did when I was 21 or 25 or even 30. You know what I mean? So I'm sorry, I don't know if I mean, it's like I said, it's a learning experience, how to deal with people, which is great because you got to deal with people,
Sure. Yeah, I was out on the road with a traveling show, and I was one of the managers, and it was different.
Yeah.
It was a different aspect where we had to make sure everybody was taken care of,
Right.
and made that bus, made that plane, and once in a while somebody would miss it.
Yeah. Joe, so you would have liked me because I was very cooperative. Okay.
Listen,
I would make your job easy.
well, it's a funny thing. For years, I was notoriously late, and now I tell my son, early is on time is late, late is unacceptable.
You know what?
So,
you sound like Buddy Rich, man. It's
yeah.
his philosophy exactly.
Well, and all the musicians that I've been lucky enough to surround myself with, they are very punctual. They come early, they set up, they make sure that they come back early from the breaks. Now, there have been a couple. One in particular, I won't name him, but he's a giant talent. And a couple of times, once to a recording session and once to a gig, he came late. And I said, I'll name him. What the hell? He's a lovely guy, and I love him. I said, when you're dealing with a talent like Greg Gisbert, you have to you have to forgive a little. You have to bend a little.
Yeah, I know.
And then I get the kiss on the forehead, and that's cool because I tell you, sometimes it's a little worth it, but usually that has not been my experience. Now, I want to talk to you, please, a little bit about your career as a leader, because obviously you're a composer. These are original tunes here that I'm looking at on YouTube, and you got to a place where you said, I want to have my own group. I want to write my own music. So tell us a little bit about that experience.
Well, that's, like you said, it's a whole different responsibility. It's funny you should say that. I just did another CD myself, Steeplechase. I just finished it a couple weeks ago. And, and even just like, writing the tunes, getting a band, rehearsing a band, getting to the studio on time, blah, 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 and then have to mix everything, help mix, yeah, it's a different responsibility, and I enjoy it, and another learning experience. You learn by your mistakes, and I started running a group. Well, even back in high school, I kind of ran the group, the Reverbs, like I mentioned. You know what I mean? My father kind of booked us because he was involved in the union, but as far as the on stage experience, and he didn't come to every gig and stuff, so I was kind of like the leader. But anyway, but now I had this band called Bob Juice. We played Smalls a lot, and I get the gigs. You got to deal with that. All the phone calls, well, emails, phone calls, texts, whatever way you want to look at. I don't know. To me, it just melts into everything else you do. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
even when you teach, you're a leader. You're a
right.
leader of a classroom.
Yeah.
I have ensembles. I teach. I have a rep class. I mean, everybody got to be there. Sometimes you got to throw out some discipline. Sometimes you have fun too. I like to have fun too. And but the main word is accountability. You got to make everybody be accountable. You know what I mean? If everybody's accountable, including yourself, then things usually work out. Does that answer the question, Joe? I don't know.
Yes. Once again, you answered the question and thoroughly, and I can speak to a lot of what you're saying because I've been through some of the same things in my little way. Tell me, you mentioned before, of course, one of my favorites, and you mentioned another interview, his musical partner. Talk about Sonny Stitt and Gene Ammons. I could listen to those guys all day. In fact, I checked out recently again a record they made, I think it was about 1961, called Boss Tenors.
Oh, yeah.
And I was particularly taken apart as I'm studying a little bit now. I always try to, with Jeb Patton, my pianist, and we're going to pick apart Autumn Leaves because, as you well know, it's a standard with some variations, but it works on some traditional progressions that can be very helpful in building that vocabulary. And they do this thing where they're working their way down the scale, and it's such a wonderful musical dialogue. But I would imagine you're influenced by those guys among many others, correct?
Oh, sure. Oh, yes. In high school, I was listening to Sonny Stitt all the time. I mean, it was like, I even remember the record. It was Sonny Stitt with Jack McDuff on the organ. And I remember the first tune was All of Me. And, and I remember trying to, at a real young age, trying to transfer. I could get the melody, but when Sonny Stitt started playing fast, they didn't have it. We didn't have a tape recorder. We just had a phonograph.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
You have to lift the needle and put it on the record. And I was trying to figure it out. I said, man, I couldn't. I was maybe about 14, 13 years old. I think 13 years old. And then, I could figure out the melody, like I said, but I couldn't figure out the. I couldn't figure that out, and I just remember saying, oh man, and then later on I started getting it, you know what I mean? But Gene Ammons and Sonny Stitt, I used to like Gene Ammons' sound. He was so big.
Oh yeah.
Big sound, and Stitt, his technique and his articulation, and the jazz he played, like bebop, it was great, still is great. I put on, those records too. I said, wow, it's still great. That's true art though, when it lives, lives the time, it'll never die,
No, listen, I do the same thing. I'm still learning. I'm still trying to grasp. And it's timeless. It's exactly right.
That's right.
Ralph, tell me about some of the musicians you work with, some of your colleagues, and your experiences with them. I know obviously you've worked with Joe Lovano.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, me and Lovano have been tight. We were like brothers. We've been hanging since the '70s. He lived in Cleveland, and I grew up, like I said, near Pittsburgh, West Alabama, and so we didn't know each other then, but we met on Woody Herman. Well, we met a little bit before. There was a jazz club in Cleveland called the Smiling Dog Saloon, and I was going to school in Youngstown, so Cleveland wasn't that far from Youngstown, and I would frequent it. It was 6 nights a week of music, and like it would be, I would hear Stitt there, I would hear Stan Getz there, Freddie Hubbard, Yusef Lateef, Miles with the wah-wah pedal and stuff, Herbie Hancock when he turned it into the Headhunters, and Art Blakey's band. You know, so I would go there, and sometimes Lovano and a local Cleveland band would open up for the Stars. You know, open up, and that's where I heard Lovano. You know, and then I kind of met him at the bar and stuff. You know, and then that was it. You know, friendly and stuff. And then, but then on Woody Herman's band, that was it. You know, that's what I mean. We were living on a bus together all that time, and you know, and I dug the way he played, of course, and you know, and we became friends. You know. And then, you know, then he what happened? He was on Mal's band. Well, we were the two tenors on Mal's band too. We were just three tenors on Woody's band. It was me, him, and Frank Tiberi, and baritone. I think it was Bruce Johnson. And then on Mal's band, it was me and Lovano on the tenors, and Oates it was Ted Nash at one point. That he quit. Then it was Billy Drews and Smolian, Gary Smolian. Dick Oates, like I said, on lead alto. So, you know, we have a long history, you know. But, you know, he's a good friend of mine. We just learned from each other. And he started a nonet. And instead of getting, you know, at that time, I remember he told me, instead of getting stars, I'm going to get my friends. And then we recorded the first record as a nonet. It was called the 52nd Street Themes. And then we won a Grammy. So there you go. You know, that blows that philosophy about getting all stars. I mean, by stars, I mean real big stars. He could have got Joshua Redman and all these guys. You know, but I'm just saying he got his buddies who could play. You know, I might add, and he won a Grammy.
Well, listen, there's no shortage of talent, regardless of you know, how prominent you may be in the public eye. Right. I got to see Lovano down at Iridium not too long ago with Hank Jones, George Mraz, and Paul Motian on the drums.
Exactly.
That was a great group.
Yeah, that's fun. Let me tell you a story about, you know, they also played at Birdland. I remember I sat in with them, you know, and I was talking to, I knew Hank a little bit, but I was talking to him. I said, like I mentioned, Thad Jones gave us a clinic, you know, right before I graduated. That's how I met Thad. Then I moved to New York. Okay, so I told that, you know, I was at the Thad Jones Clinic in Youngstown, and he mentioned you. He said somebody asked him, Thad, how do you come up with all that, you know, all that music you write? You know, some student asked him, you know, which I was one of them, and he says, oh, I used to listen to my brother modulate. In other words, he would listen to his brother practice the piano and hear him go through keys and stuff, right? And then I told that to Hank, you know, and Hank said, "You're kidding. Dad said that about him." He turned into a little kid. You know what I mean? He was thrilled that his brother had said that about him. You know what I mean? And that just flipped me out. I said, wow, you know, somebody like Hank Jones. I mean, he literally turned into almost like a child. Like, really? Oh, you got to be kidding! He said that about me. Dad said that. I said, yeah, Hank. I'm not jiving you. You know, I just thought that was kind of touching. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he was a lovely guy. He was a real gentleman, and his playing, to my ear, was always very tasty and understated and swinging and lyrical. You know, he was all of that.
Sure. Great. Yeah, I agree. I concur. Yes.
Now, I want to ask you, when we spoke before this interview, you said you had some thoughts about, and if I'm not mistaken, what's happening today, and, you know, on the music scene being on hold, and what's gone on in our country by way of, I think this is what we were touching upon, how the arts really have not been supported as well as in other places around the world. And that, you know, like I spoke with Charles McPherson recently. It was a wonderful conversation. And he said, you know, it's complicated. He said, in this country, capitalism rules, and it's kind of like, we want to make money and fast. And he said, you know, these guys who are basically pulling the strings, they figured out that the arts are nice, but it's not the road to great wealth in its way. And he said, you know, I was in a room where I just happened to be in the same space drinking a glass of wine with these folks. And he said, you know, it doesn't even resonate with them. You know, it's not even in their soul. It's not like it's even malicious. It's just, we he said, have to get to the young people maybe and indoctrinate them early. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about that.
That's exactly right. Because even when they cut education in the arts, yeah, that's what I mean. People don't experience it. Their idea of, would they go on, YouTube or MTV or so, whatever. I'm dating myself with that. But there's no education because I know myself. I'll play a gig sometime and somebody will walk up and say, I never listened to jazz, but this is really good. You could tell that they're actually touched by it. Not everybody, like Charles said. Some people don't even have it in their soul. Some people are just going to the concert or the club just because they think it's, they're going with their girlfriend or they're trying to get a girlfriend or whatever. But you're right. It's not in their soul. It's not like they're being malicious. I agree with that totally. But then again, that the people who I've met a lot of, let's say, rich people, capitalists, that it really is in their soul. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
And they even tell me it keeps them, I almost go as far as saying that it keeps them alive.
Yeah.
With all the hustle and bustle they have to deal with, and all the the people they have to deal with that aren't that soulful, when they can go home, have a glass of wine, listen to Sonny Rollins, or listen to Mozart, or listen to Stravinsky, or listen to opera, and that chills them out. That keeps them fueled for the next day. You know what I mean? So I totally agree with Charles. He's a smart man.
Oh, yeah. Lovely. I'm going to talk to him again. His birthday's coming up in July, and I'm hoping he's going to come back and we'll have another dialogue. Now, I like to talk about what people mention and just play it a little loose. You mentioned some classical composers in your last few sentences, Mozart and Stravinsky. And are those folks influences on you? Do you listen to a wide range, and have you kind of growing up and you say, well, because a lot of jazz musicians I know and know of, they've listened to Stravinsky, they've listened to Bartok, they've listened to Debussy, and they use all that stuff in their interpretation of jazz music or related music. So are you somebody kind of in that category?
I wish I could do more, but I do. I'm into like Mahler. I like Mahler.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'll start with Beethoven. I always dug his energy, and then of course Stravinsky. Yes, I used to play a lot of that because I was a clarinet major.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I played Debussy.
Yep.
I can't remember. I remember my senior recital. I did Brahms and I did a guy Ernest Krenek.
Uh-huh.
And then actually I'll blow my own horn. Not the pun, no pun intended. I guess.
Sure.
I mean, at Youngstown, I was the first guy to play on the senior recital, classical senior recital. I was the first guy to play a jazz tune with a quartet. I played "I Hear a Rhapsody." That was the tune I played. "I Hear a Rhapsody" because I want to make it Rhapsody in the title, so all the classical people would say, "I wonder what that is." So, what I mean? But and it worked because then other people started doing it. So I was like an innovator. But anyway, I don't want to blow my horn. But
No, blow your horn. That's what this is for.
Okay.
Now let's talk, if you don't mind, if it's not too frightening, because I like to say to people, the clarinet's a hauntingly beautiful instrument. Of course, not the way I play it, but you've had experience playing the clarinet, and you still do, I guess, from time to time. And how do you like it? I mean, it's obviously, I find, and maybe you'll agree, a lot more challenging because it's a legitimate instrument, and it's, really was designed for classical playing. It instead of having keys to cover, you got to cover all those holes. You got to manipulate it. Artie Shaw used to say it's very clumsy, which I find it is too. And I find sometimes I rely on certain things that I play because the fingers sit right and more easily on the horn. So, but tell me, I'd be very happy to hear your thoughts about the clarinet.
Well, yeah, for one, it's made out of wood. So that's another thing, And like you said, you have to cover the holes, and the fingerings are more awkward. Yeah. But see, I was lucky. I started on it. Like I said, I got a clarinet when I was 9. I got a tenor when I was 14. So, I mean, believe me, I still have problems too, especially if I don't play it in a while because during the pandemic, I mean, I played it a lot. So I used to play it a lot in the Carnegie band, the Carnegie Hall band. actually, we did a lot of Duke Ellington, where I have to play, all that. There's a lot of clarinet work in Duke Ellington. you know, we even
Yes.
we even recorded the Black, Brown, and Beige, which was a suite that he wrote for in the 40s, and there's a lot of clarinet there. So I was really on my game back then more than I am now, because and I do play in the Vanguard band too, but not as much. But but the Thad writes some stuff for clarinet too. So I mean, when I was playing it, I was more on my game than this last year, because I take it out and practice it, because I, once in a while, because I like it. I like the way it sounds. I like that woody sound. And I know, I just find it to be, see, it's a different, when you're doubling, it's a different airstream too. I remember when I first started trying to play, all the horns, when I played the clarinet, I would try to blow it like I was blowing a tenor, because I was mainly being a tenor player at that time after I got through college and stuff. So then I started thinking about it. I said, look, man, it's a different airstream. It's a different, it's a different hole between the reed and the mouthpiece. It's smaller, so you can't blow, and you're blowing on a what is that, a 45-degree angle rather than almost a 90-degree angle on tenor. You know what I mean? So it's a whole different way of playing, And then, it finally started coming back. And then when I start thinking that way, I start improving on it. Not because, for one, you pick up the tenor, it's louder, it's bigger, but you pick up the clarinet, you want to be just as loud, and you're not going to be. It's not made that way, So
Sure.
it's a different airstream. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I've studied with a lot of people. They all try to teach me something. But one of the great teachers I had was Bill Blount.
Mm-hmm.
And, that was a family business. You know Bill? You know who Bill is?
I know of him.
Yeah. He was first clarinet with the Orchestra St. Luke's. He was the first to record the Copeland Clarinet Concerto that Goodman commissioned. No one could record it. The story is, while Goodman was alive. Mm-hmm. So he was the first one, and a brilliant performance. But he used to say, you really have to play the clarinet every day. You could take a day off. But on the second day, he said, you'll open the case and the horn will say, now play me.
Yeah. No, I agree. I know that's why it's hard during COVID, because I don't, I'm really concentrating actually on the tenor a lot more, because, that's what I'm doing mainly. But I know I agree. That's definitely true. You got to play it every day,
Now, Ralph, tell us a little bit about your lovely wife, Nicole Pasternak. She sings.
Yes.
And you want to tell a little bit about her career and her background, or you just want to make this all about you?
No, I can talk about. Actually, like I said earlier, we met on the bandstand.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah, but actually, I had a girlfriend at the time, and she was married, so we didn't really get into that. You know what I mean? Right. But then, her things start fading, and my things start fading. And we were still working together. And, we just, I just thought she was a good singer. She had a great ear, and she knows 1,000 tunes, you know what I mean? And a lovely person, very, very helpful, very, giving. I have to tell her, I have to chill her out sometimes when I'm giving.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yes, man, what about us?
Oh, sure. Yes. Yeah, I understand that too. My wife's very tolerant of me too. Sometimes, my friends, they used to walk away. I would see somebody on a street corner, anybody I saw whom I know, I gave them 15 minutes. So I said, come on, Joe, we have to get somewhere. But I understand that. And I'm happy to say she was gracious enough to sing with me many years ago. So I'm glad. She's looking forward to getting back on the scene, as we all are.
Yeah. Can I say one thing? One more thing. I did this, like I said, I did this record on Steeplechase. Just finished it, and she's on 3 tunes also. She's gonna be on. She's on 3 tunes on the record.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna tack on a selection at the end, and I'm gonna ask you a little bit right before. Okay. But one last question I want to ask you before we play the tune. What is for you an important thing in life beyond music? Do you have hobbies? Do you have other things that you like to engage in? When I spoke with Scott Newman, my drummer, he said, I really want to talk about my connection to nature. So tell me what is beyond the music world for Ralph Lalama?
Okay. Well, just surviving these days. But no, but like, well, I kind of into politics. I'm kind of getting a little, spent with that. See, politics was in my family. I don't know if you ever heard Judge Musmano. He was one of the judges of the Nuremberg trial.
Oh, okay.
And he's on the women's side of the Lalama family. He was my grandfather's first cousin. So that makes him my third cousin.
Yep.
So he died when I was young, but I think I met him once. But I read a lot about him, and my family talked about him. And my grandfather, who gave me the clarinet when I was 9, was also the state auditor.
Okay.
He would audit corporation stuff. He wouldn't audit me or you, but so I was always in it was in the air in my family, and then also into sports. I'm definitely a football fan and a baseball fan. I mean, that's not that deep, but it is. I think it's very deep. I think it has a lot to do with, a team has a lot to do with trying to play music, You know what I mean? And then, what I'm into, I don't know if I'm into nature. I'm into nature. I mean, I like it, What else am I into? I don't even know. It's a good question. I'm into my wife, I have a few new additions to the family, which will be my great nieces and nephews, who I really haven't seen other than FaceTime. You know what I mean? Because
Sure.
COVID, I got my first shot the other day.
Good.
Yeah, that's good. What else? That's a good question. I don't have one. I'm into this, into this. I just, as it goes along, If I see something interesting, I get into it. If I read about, like cancer, I start getting into it. Read about it. If I get into, somebody's life, like a person that I wasn't hip to, let's say. It didn't have to be a musician, just anybody to be like whatever. They discovered, how to put paper to how to make out of a tree make paper. I don't know. I'm just
No. Listen, I'm with you. I really do love history, and I'm very inquisitive about all sorts of things. So most every day, if I catch a thread of something, I'll look it up. I'll talk to somebody about it. I try to impart that on my son, upon my son too. But he's 21 end of the month, and so I tell him, find out from reliable sources what's going on. If you're interested in topic, learn about it. Because, and I love to use this quote, and Artie Shaw, everything you learn will make whatever you do that much richer. So, it really does contribute. And Charles McPherson, the same thing. Barry Harris's dear friend said, "How you doing in school?" He said, "Well, I'm doing okay." He said, "No, you have to strive for excellence, and you have to listen to music, and you have to find out about people, and you really need to open yourself up to what's out there in the world on so many levels and so many topics, because that will enable you to grow as an artist."
Exactly true. I hear that. Definitely. I don't even know what to add to that. That's perfect.
Now, I want to play one of your tunes. Tell us about it. Tell us about Lalama's Dilemma.
Okay, I think it's okay. It's like the happiest minor tune in the world.
Okay.
Okay. So then the title comes from back in Youngstown. My brother and I, we were playing a lot, and we had a van, and I think actually it was his van. He made my father pay for it. But anyway, I can't remember. But then, so some things happen to the van. The battery dies. It's cold. It was a lot of cold weather in Youngstown. Or we were working a lot, so we had sometimes we were kids, so sometimes the club owner wouldn't pay us, or the battery would die. So we were sitting in our little pad there in Youngstown. We were going to school, and I remember, I think the band didn't start, and we had to get somebody to come over to jump it, and we had a gig. So we walked in, we were waiting for the guy. I think this is where we were waiting for the guy to come, and we were dressed and stuff. And then our roommate came in and said, "What's wrong with you guys? What's that?" We said, "Oh man, blah, 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 blah." He goes, "Oh man, another Lalama's Dilemma." And that cracked me up. I started laughing like wow. That really cooled me out. You know what I mean? And I never forgot it. And then then this is in the 90s now, this tune. and I had this record day with Chris Cross. I wrote this tune. I said, I'm going to call it Lalama's Dilemma.
And who's on the tune with you? I'm looking at it, but you tell everybody.
Okay, Kenny Barron, Dennis Irwin, and Kenny Washington.
So Kenny Barron on the piano, yeah, Dennis Irwin.
Yeah, Dennis Irwin on bass, and Kenny Washington on the drums.
Okay, folks, we're going to play an original composition by Ralph Lalama called Lalama's Dilemma. We've been talking to Ralph Lalama today, an immense talent, solid fixture, as I said earlier, on the New York jazz scene, a leader, an educator, and a sideman extraordinaire. And in fact, you know what, Ralph? I want to talk, before we go, a little bit. I didn't touch on this. You teach at NYU.
Well, I used to teach it. I was there for 29 years. Yeah, I was there.
Okay.
Now I'm at SUNY, but I've been at SUNY about almost 20 years.
Okay, so tell us about your experiences teaching. Obviously, you like it. You know, I know it pays a little bit of money, sure, but obviously you like being an educator. And tell me what you've learned as a teacher over the years.
Well, I learned a lot. You know, for one, you learn how to understand what you do too, because you have to explain it. You know, I mean, you have to think about, okay, how am I going to get this guy to do this certain thing? You know what I mean? So you have to like, you know, break it down in your own mind. So that's a trick, you know. And then also you can learn from students. You know, I do all the time, especially these days. There's a lot of real good ones, you know, that come in there and they're pretty good already. And you know, they're pretty. Not everybody, of course, but some of them are very technically proficient, you know. And then, you know, and there's now, especially, you know, it's easy to transcribe, and they have 1,000 books on solo, and they'll come in there knowing like all kind of solos and stuff, and you know, but then you got to try to teach them how to be themselves too, which is not really teachable, I think, sometimes. But you could like suggest things, you know. Especially it's different levels. So that's what I mean. You're dealing like this, like being on a road with 16 people on a bus. You know, there's all kind of different personalities. You know, all kind of different levels of talent. So you got to, being a teacher, you have to know who to nurture, who not to. Well, you nurture everybody, but what levels of nurturing. You know, and so that's you know, it's always keeps me on my toes. That's for sure. You know what I mean? And then you know, and then you're dealing with personalities too. You know. You know, and then you have to know who to like go deeper in their personality and who not to. You know what I mean? That's a trip. You know, because sometimes you want to influence them. You know, as their teacher, but sometimes you have to know different ways how to navigate it. You know, some people are more sensitive. Some people you could scream at and they'd love it. You know, and then some guy, if you do that with this next person, oh man, you know, oh, he hollered at me, you know, so you got to know how to deal with it. But I still want to get the mission accomplished, you know what I mean? I'm not going to back off and say, oh man, my kid, he's sensitive, so I'm not going to, I have to find another way to get inside this dude. You know what I mean?
Yes, I mean, it's a mark of a real mentor. It's a mark of a leader. I understand very well that you have to use different approaches and different finesse for different people to try to get the best out of them.
Exactly.
Okay, folks.
Now, you say it in one sentence, it takes me a half hour to say it.
Because I've been doing this for a little while, and you know, I have a lot of time, Ralph, to think these things up. You're the one who's out there teaching and gigging and mastering your craft. I sit around here thinking of these sentences. I just all day I say, well, I'm gonna put a comma there. That's all I do. Anyhow, I'm here with Ralph Lalama. It's been a pleasure. A teacher, a major jazz musician, and influence on all the folks that have come after him. And I'm very, very grateful that you're able to make time, Ralph. And I wish you and Nicole only the best. This is Joe Traina, and this has been Please Join Me. And I hope you'll come back and join us again soon. And please check out Ralph Lalama, his recordings and his compositions. Go to YouTube, go to the internet. Maybe you'll even fork over a few bucks and buy one of his CDs. Or if you're a kid, they have those WAV files you download right away. You don't have to use a disc anymore. Right, Ralph?
That's true. Yes, sir.
Well,
but listen, Joe, thank you.
Thanks again.
Caroline, thank you. Thank you.
My pleasure.
You've been listening to Please Join Me with Joe Traina. Be sure to listen anywhere you get your podcasts. Keep up with JoeTrainamusic.com for news and new episodes. You can listen to Joe's latest recording, Tip of the Hat, on all major streaming services and wherever fine music is sold. This episode was produced by Caroline Voigt.